With Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment launching this week, it is truly the end of an era that started about a decade ago when we first laid our eyes on the next Legend of Zelda game. It was a magical, but I would say somewhat somber moment because the Wii U was doing terrible when it comes to the sales overall, but there was excitement about the future of certain franchises like the Legend of Zelda. And when we all saw that first trailer for the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild back at E3 2014, everybody's minds raced with the possibilities that could happen. And Nintendo delivered on that, and even then some, because they delivered a generational game that came out in 2017 with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Then we got an awesome spin-off from that with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Then we got The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, all following the same storyline. And now at this point, we are down to the wire with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. And I want to go over a few different things with this game because it is once again launching this week, or if you're watching this in the future, if you want to pick this one up, it's only on the Nintendo Switch 2, so it's not a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, so don't expect a Nintendo Switch 1 version. It actually used to be a Nintendo Switch 1 game, and then Koei Tecmo found out about the Nintendo Switch 2 mid-development and was like, yeah, let's go ahead and put that on this system. It's much better, and I think that was a good idea considering how Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity ran on the Nintendo Switch 1 at less than 30 frames per second a lot of the time. Now, this game, it's the story that leads up to the events of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. You don't necessarily need to play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity or even Tears of the Kingdom before you play this game, but I do highly recommend that you play those games or at least be familiar with some of the characters, storylines, and all that. But yes, I do recommend actually playing the games. Now, there is a demo at select Best Buys, Targets, and Walmarts, so you just have to kind of go in and check. My Target didn't have it, but my Best Buy did, so I was actually able to play the demo myself. And from what I've played, it's actually pretty fun. Now, visually speaking, the quality is significantly above all other previous Hyrule Warriors games. There was the Hyrule Warriors game that originally released on the Wii U, then the definitive edition that came out that got us to locked 60 FPS and a ton of all the DLC, everything added in. It's actually a really good game, and if you play that Nintendo Switch version of the definitive edition on the Nintendo Switch 2, it looks great, it runs even better, it loads faster. I do recommend that if you just want some kind of like mindless fun at times overall. But this is by far the best looking Warriors game that I have seen when it comes to anything that Nintendo's done with Koei Tecmo. So it looks fantastic. Now let's talk about the frame rate because that was an issue on the Nintendo Switch 1. No problems here with the frame rate. The demo that I played, it was rock solid. And the demo units, they're in portable mode with a Pro controller and it in portable mode. And I didn't feel any dips at all. But that could change maybe in the full game. Maybe there's some bigger levels that open up a bit more. There's some crazy stuff happening on screen. But from the demo that I played and from the footage that they've shown, it looks like it's a pretty good, solid 60 FPS most of the time. Now, in the demo, you can play as 3 different characters and you can swap them on the fly. You have Princess Zelda, Minoru, and King Rauru, and they're all pretty fun to play as. Princess Zelda was a little bit slower than I thought she would be, but she has powerful sword strikes overall. King Rauru, he has a pretty good mix of speed and power, but that big spear that he carries, it really deals some crazy damage. And Minoru, to me, she's probably the craziest one out of the bunch because she's using all sorts of Zonai devices and riding on top of them and transforming and all sorts of stuff. And then the new sync attacks are pretty cool as well, as there's some pretty cool construct stuff that you can do. I highly recommend going and checking out the demo yourself and playing it, or if you want to just go in blind, you can check out the game when it launches on November 6th. But I do think that it's a very, very fun game from what I've played. Now, for those that are wondering if they're going to put the demo from the Best Buys and Targets and Walmarts on the Nintendo Switch eShop, it's very likely that they will because they did the same thing with Donkey Kong Bonanza. They had a demo at Best Buy and Targets in certain places, and then later after the release, they put it on the Nintendo Switch 2 eShop. So I do think that there will be a demo, but there'll be a demo later. I think what they want to do is pretty much get people to say, oh wow, that new thing's out or I can play this, and then FOMO buy the system or FOMO buy the game right there when you're able to do it at the store. Compared to people at home that are waiting for a demo, you're probably going to go pick up the game anyway if you're interested in it, because you already have the system. So let's talk about why it's the end of the era when it comes to the Breath of the Wild phase and that style and everything. I think that the next major Zelda is going to be a huge change from what we've got before, and it's a little bittersweet, to be honest here, guys. This was the most successful era in Legend of Zelda history by a lie. It's not even close here, guys. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sold over 33 million units and counting when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom sold around 22 million units and counting. That is 55 million units plus just for those two games. That's better than the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and even a lot of the other titles combined, with some space to spare here and there. So Nintendo sold a lot. People really like the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and that style of gameplay, but I do think changes are going to be coming here. But before we get into more of those changes and the end of the era, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. And let me know in the comment section below what your favorite Legend of Zelda game is. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this, because I think that Nintendo is going to go in a different stylistic direction with Link, and there are three main reasons why. One, Switch 2 hardware power. The fact that Nintendo is working with so much more power than they've ever worked with before in the history of the company, I think that that sometimes dictates what they're going to do. With The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, they had a powerful 64-bit console, so they decided to make sure that they did the best that they could overall with the visual look of the game, putting it at 20 FPS, but still, it looked really good for the time overall. So I do think that Nintendo will harness and use that power. Not saying that they're going to build a graphical GTA 6 beast with this thing, but I do think that they are going to go in a different art direction that complements maybe the upgraded specs of the Nintendo Switch 2, just like they did with the N64 back in the day. Or even if you want to look at it, with the Super Nintendo and what they did with The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past. That was pretty much cutting edge for an adventure game at that time as well. Second reason why I think so, they didn't do DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. I think if they really felt like holding on to that world and what they're going on with there, they probably would have done DLC and kind of lead that into potentially something happening in the future. But I think that they really just want it to end right there. We have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment coming out, which is a prequel overall, the events leading up to it, and then you have Tears of the Kingdom, and that's kind of it overall. So if they really wanted to continue the story and really wanted to continue that world, I think they would have done DLC. They did DLC for Breath of the Wild. That got so elaborate it turned into Tears of the Kingdom, and I think that they feel pretty confident with what they've been able to build over the last decade when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and now Imprisonment. Now the third reason here is kind of complex, but I do think that it's a factor, and I think that they know that they can't take all gen for a new Zelda game like the Wii U. I think that that was one of the biggest problems with the Wii U in terms of getting the system off, was because they did not have a plan for Zelda to come out anytime soon after the system launched, because they had just launched The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword in 2011, and then the Wii U launched in 2012. Yes, they were working on the next Zelda game, but it wasn't going to be ready anytime soon. I think that Nintendo knows that they have to have a big Zelda game shown off within the first, I would say, couple years of the system's launch. You don't want to go past the second or third year mark without that next major Legend of Zelda announced and potentially even dated or for a year. So I do think that since they did finish up with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom officially in 2023 when the game launched, but the game was done, content complete and everything, in 2022. They took about a year to really optimize and get the game ready to go. So I do think that they probably started working on concepts and ideas and certain things like that for the next Legend of Zelda, probably in late 2022 or very early 2023. So I do think that if you're looking at a smaller scale Zelda, probably not a Zelda at the size or sheer, I would say, just landmass, super open world of Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, which I do think that they are going to make more of a traditional, I would say, Ocarina of Time, but with a mixture of some of the stuff that made Breath of the Wild and Tears great, with some of the open world stuff, but the traditional elaborate dungeons. If they do something like that and kind of downsize just a bit, but fill it full of content and life, I do think that they can get a game out in the next 4 years or so, 4 to 5 years. So I think that they could have a game ready by 2027. So if you're looking at a reveal in 2026 and then a launch in 2027, and also if you look at it, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are already ported over to the Nintendo Switch 2 with better graphics and performance. So they already have that for those who want to play that. I think they're going to go in a different direction this time around because of those three things that I mentioned there. Now, Nintendo always wants to consistently reinvent the Zelda franchise. They've been doing this for a very long time. And with the Zelda movie coming up in the next couple of years, the first major new Zelda game on Switch 2 is going to be a powerful marketing piece for the movie and vice versa. Now, I'm not saying that the next game is going to be built or going to be based off of the movie or anything like that. I'm just saying that they probably want to have a strong complementary piece when it comes to these two things: a great live action movie, a great looking and great playing Zelda game, and let those two kind of feed off of each other. What we saw with the Mario movie is that many of the games surrounding Mario, especially when they released at that time with Mario Day and everything right around that time period, they all got major bumps in 2023. People were going back and playing some of the older Mario games. People were looking forward to the new Mario games. People were looking forward to the remasters and remakes like Super Mario RPG Remake. That was fantastic, and people loved what they did with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door and that remaster. It is a great remake of the game, so I think that they want to have that synergy overall, which they've pretty much already talked about when it comes to their financial meetings. They do want to bring more people in to their video game business by having movies, by having merchandising, by having all this different type of stuff that can get people in. Even if you can't afford or you can't buy a Switch 1 or Switch 2 at this point, you can still watch the movie. You can still check out the merchandise. You can still see other things, and that can draw you in when you get around to having money, or when you get around to saying, okay, well, maybe I want to check out this game that's associated with this franchise that I think looks cool, because there's new people every day picking up different types of mediums, picking up different types of franchises or different types of shows and all of that. And Nintendo is probably trying to say, hey, look, we can do this too with The Legend of Zelda overall. So I think that they want to move in a different direction. They had an incredible run of about 10 years from the first reveal of this new style of Legend of Zelda game all the way up until now the launch of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and of course the relaunches of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom on the Nintendo Switch 2 in 60 FPS, much higher resolution and much faster loading, and a few extras as well. So it's time to move on. I think they're going to do something different, but I think it's going to be incredible when it comes down to it. And like I said before, I alluded to, it's a little bit bittersweet, man. This is one of my favorite eras of Zelda games. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is my favorite game on the Nintendo Switch. One, I think that it's incredible. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I love Tears of the Kingdom. It's definitely one of my top 10 favorite games as well. So to see this era go, it's like, man, it's gonna go. We've had so many great memories, but at the same time, as someone who's even a big fan of this era, I know it's like, okay, we've gotten enough of this. It is time to see what's next. It's time to see something different. It's kind of time to move on. So to me, I'm going to savor it. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, it's coming out. I'm going to play the heck out of it. I played Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity back in 2020 in the pandemic year, and that game ran bad, but I still had a ton of fun. And it was just super cool to see that world in a different style of game. And now with the power of the Nintendo Switch 2 and the experience that they have from Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I think that they're going to go out on a bang when it comes to Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I am really looking forward to the story. I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking forward to everything about this. And there's going to be a ton of content too, so that's going to be great. So they haven't announced any type of season pass or anything like that, so maybe it comes in the future, maybe it doesn't, but they might just want to say, hey, this is it when it comes down to it, and move on to the next thing. So to me, it's the end of an era, and that's okay because there's still a lot of great adventures to be had. So what do you guys think about this when it comes to Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and my theory on the end of an era for Nintendo with The Legend of Zelda and what's next? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.